go ahead and get started, and hopefully we'll have some more folks join us in the next couple minutes. But thank you everyone for coming to our event tonight on engaging students in climate and impactful climate actions, kind of how all of these climate actions happening in different regions can connect to our education. So we're super excited about our panel, and we're also super thankful for tonight's event sponsors, Ripple Glass, Branch Pattern, and Cromwell Solar, all very applicable to tonight's topic. So please take a minute and read what the screen shares about each of these companies. And I want to turn the mic over to our presenters. We have some wonderful presenters from across St. Louis and Kansas City today. So Aaron, you're up.
Hi, my name is Aaron Young. I'm the Sustainability Planning Manager at East West Gateway Council of Governments, the metropolitan planning organization for the St. Louis region.
I'm Tom Jacobs. I'm the Director of Environmental Programs at Mid-America Regional Council. Mark is sort of the analog to East West Gateway in St. Louis. And it's a pleasure to be here with everybody.
I'm Matt Riggs. I'm the Outreach Coordinator for the Mark Solid Waste Management District. I work in the same office as Tom. One of the hats I wear is the chair of the Climate Action Student Action Committee, and also the facilitator of the Kansas City Environmental Education Network.
Hi, I'm Maggie McCoy. I'm the Education and Volunteer Coordinator at Earthway Center, which is the Sustainability Division of Missouri Botanical Garden. So we work a lot with K-12 programming around sustainability, including solid waste issues, energy efficiency, and then also stormwater management.
Hi, and I'm Hope Gribble. I'm with the U.S. Green Building Council, Missouri Gateway chapter. My role there is the Education and Green Schools Manager. And we provide a lot of education and advocacy around green building, providing professional development to building industry, architects and engineers, as well as working with a wide range of organizations, municipalities, and K-12 schools to advance sustainability.
And I am Todd Clower. I am the upper school principal of Hyman Brand Hebrew Academy in Overland Park, Kansas. And we work on a social justice project partnership with 3 schools in the Kansas City metro area. And we've been doing climate activism for the past few years.
Thanks so much, everybody. I'm really excited about this next hour. So Aaron, take it away.
Okay. So we're presenting to you today. We're giving you an overview of what we're doing at a pretty big picture in Kansas City and St. Louis, because the programs that we're presenting to you, we're all working together on common regional scale efforts and goals and targets. So Tom and I are going to give you an overview of what we're doing within the regions, and it ties into work that's going on with our partners at the within the education systems. So I'm sharing my screen here. This is a timeline of what we've been doing with St. Louis in relationship to climate. It's couched in our regional sustainability plan, which is called 1STL. You can see the logo in the upper corner with our website. We got a grant from the Department of Housing and Urban Development in 2010 to do a regional plan for sustainability. So we don't necessarily have a standalone climate plan, but we've rolled climate into a regional plan for sustainability that covers many topics. So we got a grant in 2010 to do the regional plan, and we completed the grant in 2013. And we continued to meet as several partners interested in regional sustainability topics between 2013 and moving forward. And a milestone for us happened in 2017 when several partners, including almost all of the universities in the area and East West Gateway Council of Governments, through a regional sustainability summit. And out of that summit came a number of working groups and new targets for us to work on. And it really changed the game in how we were approaching sustainability in the St. Louis area. You don't need to, I'm not going to read all of this to you. You'll have access to the slides. You can read what we've been doing over the years at your leisure and at a future time. I am not able to advance my screen. There we go. So we had, out of the summit, we had 6 working groups that formed. You could see the focus areas of these working groups. These paralleled the tracks that we had at the summit, but people liked having the tracks. They really bought into the conversations that happened. So when the summit was over, everyone that was involved with it decided that they wanted to keep meeting and keep having discussions together at a regional scale. A lot of people were having discussions about how to do recycling within their own cities, but nobody was meeting and having and convening groups from the St. Louis region, which consists of 8 counties, both in Missouri and Illinois. So some of these groups formed were brand new. The materials and recycling group formed first. They were brand new, and like I said, they wanted to keep meeting, and that's a good example of, luckily they did, because about a year after this summit, you might have heard of the China National Sword hit, and the recycling landscape significantly changed. So since this group was already meeting, we were able to roll right into conversations and dove right into what we needed to do regionally to address the changes in the recycling, the economics of the recycling. So we have these 6 working groups. A couple of them formed new. A couple of them were existing groups, like the biodiversity group was a combination of the St. Louis Zoo and the Missouri Botanical Gardens. They were meeting on biodiversity on their own, and they saw the benefit in working within the umbrella of sustainability and being able to use the regional partnerships that we put together. So biodiversity existed and started to work with under the umbrella of 1STL. So biodiversity, food access, and transit-oriented development all were groups that already existed, and they joined in and decided to work with us on our regional sustainability efforts. And the other groups were new and formed afterwards and decided to keep meeting after our summit. And you can see on these bullets some of the organizations that are involved. Actually, these are the organizations that are running these groups. East-West Gateway kind of just takes a coordinating role. We don't run these groups. They're self-organized and self-managed. So they are all community-based, or at least not nonprofit-based, and some other government entities are also involved. So our climate effort is mostly working within the energy and emissions working group. We did recently complete a greenhouse gas inventory, or just finishing up that to be able to guide our efforts on energy and emissions. And again, I am trying to, okay, there we go. So we had the working groups that worked on their own, but I said 1STL is a coordinating effort. So as East-West Gateway, myself and a coworker, and there's actually several people volunteer to help us do coordinating activities. We run a monthly, we call Sustainability Lab at T-Rex. T-Rex is a downtown business incubator in downtown St. Louis. We hold monthly educational events on sustainability. We maintain a website. We do social media posts. Some of those are sampled on the website through Instagram and Facebook. We don't do too much Twitter. That one's just too hard to keep up on. So we focus on Instagram and Twitter, or Instagram and Facebook, I mean. And then we find connections between the working groups that are working on similar things. One thing was we created a new food waste reduction subgroup that's a combination of our materials and recycling group and our food access group. So there's a lot of opportunities to work together across those working groups. And then the last thing we do with our 1STL is we act as a community resource, and we post best practices on our website and offer technical assistance through all of these groups that work together. And some of that came out through the educational programs that we'll talk about. They tapped into the network of 1STL to be able to find some technical assistance to be able to help with the outreach to education. So that is all I've got.
Great. Thank you, Aaron. And we will have a time for Q&A at the end. So if you have something burning, you can certainly ask now. But next up is Tom. Tom, you're muted, and I can't see your face.
Thank you. Is my screen showing?
It is.
Fantastic. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. And, you know, it's interesting listening to Aaron share his presentation. The work that we're doing in Kansas City is very substantially similar in a lot of regards. In March, our board of directors adopted a regional climate action plan that calls for becoming a net zero region by 2050. One of the things that was striking about our process is we worked together with Climate Action KC, a recently incorporated nonprofit that has just enormous grassroots involvement, a lot of elected leadership leading that group. There are many schools that participate in that process, many kids like Matt will talk about in a minute. To set up the plan, we had a number of sort of predicates that we wanted to put forward. Everything that we're talking about, you know, if we're talking about more transit or tree planting or stream restoration or food security, these are all things that we want to do. We want to create jobs and have a ready workforce. We've already proven we can do this stuff. We know how to build high-performing buildings. We know how to recycle, right? So our question is, how do we scale up and how do we work together smarter to deal with the many challenges in front of us? We believe that leadership comes from all of us. And so for the purposes of this presentation, it's fair to say kids are leaders, and how do we position our processes to foster that leadership and create spaces for that leadership to be exerted in service of shared community goals. And finally, that, you know, we believe that, you know, we want to do no harm. The Hippocratic Oath has guided our social trends for a long time. In this case, doing nothing is harmful and doing a lot is possible. So by way of our process, we conducted a greenhouse gas inventory. The headline is that 2/3 of the energy that we use comes from using energy in buildings, and 1/3 comes from transportation. You can slice and dice the data a lot of different ways to look at food systems or supply chains and so forth. One of the things that it's an interesting thing for kids to do is to take a look at what's going on in their schools and to use that as a way to help do diagnostics and set future directions for change. Our plan focused on two aspects. One was mitigation, that's greenhouse gas emissions reduction, and the other is adaptation. So on the mitigation side, I mentioned to you that from the emissions inventory, we're looking at energy and transportation as the two biggest things. And so building energy efficiency and renewable energy are the two biggest buckets where we can drive down emissions reduction. On the transportation side, we're really reliant on electrifying the fleet. It'd be interesting to look at school districts' fleets and to see what opportunities might exist there. Everything that we couldn't, as we tried to get to net zero, everything that we couldn't get from this first three categories, we really put in a bucket we called sequestration, which is putting carbon in the ground and in vegetation through ecosystem restoration and soil restoration kinds of efforts. On the adaptation side, we know that we have three major natural hazards that will be exacerbated under future climate regimes, and those are drought, flooding, and extreme heat. And we did a really hard look to see how those might impact different frontline communities across the metro. And I think that in turn offers a really interesting lens for schools to consider how do these sorts of threats manifest in terms of school operations, and how could they be addressed in different sorts of creative ways. So the different categories in our action plan are all the same things that Erin mentioned, right? We're talking about planting trees and transit-oriented development, recycling and reuse, looking at urban food systems, including food waste, of course, the renewable energy and energy efficiency space. And all of those topics, frankly, are I think, ripe for study and analysis and action by students. On the adaptation side, the issue of social equity was front and center in all of our work. So we are interested in, how do folks get to work, or how do they get to school, or issues of food security, heat islands and heat stress and energy burdens, these sorts of issues that have solutions, and with explicit and deliberate attention really can be addressed head on. So our whole plan is predicated on the idea of trying to understand the relationships across these different sectors in search of more integrated, system-based, multi-benefit solutions. So if we're interested in having kids walk to school to, reduce how much people are driving and those kinds of emissions, what are the safety elements? What are the health elements? What are the opportunities to be in green spaces or off-road on trails to get to school? You can begin to link some of these different issues in creative kinds of ways that really build community resilience. So I just had a couple of, I was just brainstorming about, well, what does this plan have to say about schools? So Matt will talk more about this, but I think the big thing is that I've just observed from the world of environmental education is just learning by doing. I know that around Kansas City, so many schools have gardens of different stripes. It might be an orchard, it might be a butterfly garden, there's probably a compost pile, there might be a little raised bed. And thinking about incorporating this into curriculum. When you think about facility improvements, there's a school in Eudora, Kansas, where the high school math teacher worked with a group of kids to figure out how to design and build and install a windmill at their school. There's other high schools that have put solar up, and students have been heavily involved in doing the analysis to try and figure out what would be best to use and how to put it together. I mentioned a little bit about landscape and gardens. One of the win-win-win kind of spaces is using more compost. First, composting food waste in schools, which we have a lot of schools that are doing that around our area, and then thinking about how do you put that back into the landscape to turn soils into sponges and to boost productivity of food that can be eaten, over lunch. And I'm excited to hear Todd talk about opportunities for students to exert more leadership and be involved in the community and driving change. So here's my contact information. There's a link to our full plan. If you don't want to read the full 170 pages, we have a 2-page executive summary that'll get you started. So I look forward to hearing the rest of the presentations, and thank you.
Thanks so much, Tom. Next up is Matt.
I'll get myself unmuted there. So my name is Matt Riggs. I'm the outreach coordinator here at the Mark Solid Waste Management District, and I wear several hats here. And two of the hats I'm going to be talking about today is I serve as the coordinator of the Kansas City Environmental Education Network and the chair of the Climate Action KC Student Action Committee. So the first thing I want to, as we dive more into the details, get down into the weeds on how to interact with kids, I'd like to start with Kansas City Environmental Education Network, because that really works with the adults who are working with the kids. Kansas City Environmental Education Network is a bi-state network of educators serving pre through K students in the metro area. We've been around since 2003, and our mission is basically to expand and improve environmental education for youth throughout the metro area, which is basically the 9-county service area of Mark. One of the most successful ways we've done that since 2003 is that we meet every month. Kansas City Environmental Education Network is 100+ different members from all types of backgrounds, but the one thing they have in common is that they have some stake in educating youth about the environment. So we have nonprofits, we have state agencies, national agencies, entertainers, you name it, if you have something to do with environmental education and your interest is in the K through 12 group, then you're welcome around our table. So we meet every month, and with the exception of COVID, we meet in person. We meet at different members' places of business. So, 1 month we might be at a museum, the next month we might be at an EPA lab, etc. But the best thing to come out of this is the frequent networking, the face-to-face contact. It allows adult educators. Now, this is both formal and non-formal. So we have both teachers and people who work for nonprofits and agencies all getting together, sharing ideas, sharing resources, partnering up on things. It's a great way to strengthen that network, especially in a large geographic area such as the Kansas City region, which is 2 states, 9 counties, 119 cities. It's urban, it's suburban, it's rural. So it's a great way to bring together a diverse group of people. Now, since we've been around since 2003, we have developed a few other resources and ways to get our members involved. And one is our membership directory. So we have a membership directory, and I won't click on it because I don't want to freeze up the screen or anything or have problems going back and forth, but it basically it gives a little synopsis of each one of our members, who they are, how to contact them, what their programs are, cost of programs, types of programs, subject areas covered. It's a great guide for educators or the general public to find out what groups do what and how they can get their kids or students involved. We also we have networking events. So with some of our members, like for instance, we partner every year with the Union Station, which is part of the Science City. One of their departments is Science City. So we have a STEM Fest every year, with the exception of 2020. But that's a great way to get together with people from all over the region and talk about STEM and how that relates to environmental education and climate and that type of thing. So we partner with our members to help reinforce their events and the messages that they're getting out there. We also have a funding opportunity, a sheet where we list funding opportunities, because that's one of the things that's always been an issue for environmental education, is finding the right funding to help fund your project, whether you're a school or a nonprofit. It's getting that funding lined up so you can do what you need to do. So we have a funding guide that we update regularly that people can look at to find funding. We also have the Teaching Environmental Stewardship Award, which is something we give out pretty much every year. There's been a few off years for one reason or another, but it basically recognizes a teacher in the metro area who does an outstanding job at teaching environmental education. Because as you know, recognizing people's efforts is very important, and we all know that teachers too often are undervalued when they should be way more valued than they are. We also have a section on greening your school. Because green schools, they are the learning lab for kids, and so I'll scroll down a little bit. But so we have a green schools. The section on green schools on our website deals with basically every aspect of a school and how you would green it. So it looks at careers. How do you get kids excited about and in touch with green careers? What about purchasing? What about recycling? What about transportation? What about food services, everything from getting food from a school garden to composting with local composting groups. So it really kind of gives you an overall comprehensive look at what it takes to make a school green and how to get there in the Kansas City metro area. So those are some of the aspects of Kansas City Environmental Education Network. But the bottom line is with Kansas City Environmental Education Network, if you did nothing else but get together these types of groups in your area on a regular basis to network, you'd be doing great things. So you don't have to do all the other stuff that we do. If you did that alone, that would be enough. But it's getting those educators together to share their ideas and get that synergy between them going that can really help in sustainability / climate / green schools education. So I'm going to stop sharing that screen and talk a little bit about the Climate Action KC Student Action Committee. So that group was formed about a year ago in, first came together around December, January of 2019, 2020. So I became the chair a couple months within that. And the point of the committee was we're one of 6 committees that was formed by the Climate Action Kansas City group, which Tom mentioned. And our purpose was to engage kids in a meaningful way in climate action. So we started out at that point. Then the pandemic hit, shut things down for a while. We got back energized and restarted in the summer of 2020, completely virtually. And so we've had upwards of about 15 or 20 students involved at any one time. Their age ranges from about 5th or 6th grade on up to 12th grade. So we're kind of targeting the middle school and high school areas, but that's not to say that we won't target areas outside that range in the future. So some of the things that we've been working on as a group included looking at the climate action plan that Tom presented on and finding out from them what areas they're interested in. So these are the kind of areas that they voiced interest in. One was Climate Action KC has a great web page, but it didn't really have a youth component to it. So we spent a lot of time talking about and designing a youth web page and the different aspects of that that would be useful for getting youth involved and engaged with our group and with climate action in the general area and the MARC and Climate Action KC's efforts in general. So that page is not up and running yet. Otherwise, I would show it to you. But that was a great way to get them involved. We did kind of a question and answer session with them. We showed them different websites. They decided, I like this, I don't like that. So it was helpful for us to get their opinion on what they liked and what they didn't like. And as you all know, it's always good if you can put the kids in the driver's seat, kind of let them be, you're kind of the guardrails, but they're kind of driving the process. So you don't want it to be too prescriptive from an adult point of view. But they came up with some really great ideas and helped us formulate a great plan for the website. Also, the Climate Action Committee, the presentation that Tom just gave is a version of the presentation that we came up with to give to all types of groups for the metro area. Primarily, that's going to be city councils and city departments, but we're definitely branching out into other areas such as schools and churches and youth groups, et cetera, like that. So one of our goals and one of their interests is that the kids want to speak directly with their elected officials. They want to get out there and help share this with their classmates at their schools. So the presentation that we're calling, it's the Climate Action Plan Ambassadors Group is what it is. So they can become an ambassador for the Climate Action Plan and go out and give our presentation. And it's a great opportunity for them. Some other areas that they voiced interest in that are taken directly from the Climate Action Plan, including educating public officials, but really anybody in general, about the concept of the 15-minute neighborhood, which for those of you familiar, it's that, basically anything you need, food, clothing, shelter, entertainment, everything is accessible easily, hopefully by foot or by bike within 15 minutes of your home. So they were very excited about that concept. They're also excited about composting, both at home and school and elsewhere, planting trees and native plants. They're also excited about helping foster community gardens and orchards throughout the metro area and promoting zero waste, waste reduction and reuse and recycling. So those are some of the areas that we're going to be working on. So the pandemic, of course, had a tremendous effect on everything. And I think that kind of slowed our ambition because, a lot of these activities involve getting the kids out in the community and doing stuff. Well, that wasn't exactly possible during the pandemic, especially since, the vaccine wasn't opened up to younger groups until later, and it's still not open to anyone under 12. We certainly wouldn't want to endanger any of our members by pushing them out to go do activities with groups where they could be exposed. So that's kind of hindered us a little bit. But one of the good things that we did do during our kind of virtual time, was at each of our meetings we had a guest speaker, and that guest speaker came and talked about some aspect, or it could be their whole career, their green career. So what it took to be a green career, we had architects, we had planners, people from all different walks of life whose main or one of their main areas of their career is sustainability oriented or green oriented. And I think that was very successful because it really opened up the world to these kids that, that working for climate action or improving the environment at a local level goes beyond whatever action they're taking now, that they can actually pursue this the rest of their lives, no matter what career they go into, whether they're in politics or law or arts, whatever they go into, there's a sustainability aspect to that career. And so having those guest speakers, I think, really helped open up their world to like, yeah, this is much more than, if I want an environmental career, the EPA isn't the only option, or becoming a park ranger isn't the only option, that there's a lot of options, a big buffet open to them to bring sustainability into their lives as they choose what career they're going into. So anyway, right now we're on a summer hiatus, but we're planning on meeting back, starting our monthly meetings again in September. So we hope to be in person and with new energy, fresh energy, crisp fall air, etc. So I will stop there.
That's great. Thank you, Matt. That's exciting to hear what kids are doing in Kansas City and just all of their interests. Let's swing on over to St. Louis. Maggie.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this up, and hopefully this is showing the right thing. Leslie, you're seeing the right thing, right?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about one of the things that we do at Earthway Center, which is again part of the Missouri Botanical Garden, which is helping students and teachers within school actually carry out sustainability projects. So that's a lot of the work I do is actually with students in school. So that's sort of the perspective I'm coming from in terms of the detailed picture at this. So a lot of the work we do is really focused on helping students collect data on sustainability projects within their school, and then using that data to build action projects. For the big reason that if you work in sustainability or have any experience with it, things are always changing. And so our solutions change, the technology changes, all of that changes. But being able to look at your surroundings and make an informed decision based off of information you can collect is a skill you can bank for life. So that's kind of how we look at this and how we approach this topic. So for any action project, we use our framework that we call an 8-step action plan, which is like many design or action plans that you might have seen before, but this is the one that we use. And so one of the things we like students to do first is just to become aware of whatever their issues are in their school. So this could be related to waste, again, stormwater, energy, anything like that, and just sort of start learning a little bit about how people are connected to that issue, how it impacts different things, and what kind of changes they could make. What are some issues that are connected to specific problems within their school, and sort of try and gain that understanding of how the issue's connected to their life. And then doing some research. So this is often the step where we help students collect data and actually go into their school building. And I'll get into all the different ways that we do that, but actually collect data on their school building so that they have real information on their local situation so they can start making changes. And then with that information, we ask them to involve key players. So in a school, this is a really great opportunity for students because it puts them in touch with people in their school that they might not normally talk to. So like think your janitorial staff, your maintenance staff, your operations staff, the people in the cafeteria. All of these people affect the sustainability of a school and have a huge impact on it, but it's often not the people that our students are connecting with. So it helps to connect students with people who are actually doing a lot of the sustainability work within their school, and who we're going to need to be partners in whatever change we're trying to make. Once we do that, we ask them to brainstorm solutions and then take action. And the reason we sort of separate these two steps out, at least here, is because we have a lot of students who, they see a problem and they have a gut reaction as to what they want to do, but they don't really think through what the barriers might be or what might be the best solution. So we ask them to brainstorm all their dream solutions first, and then go through and sort of pick out which action they actually want to take before they go out and take action on it. and then assess if that solution worked. What did, what didn't, how can we change it? And then evaluate that long term. Because I think one of the things we do see in schools a lot is that often there's a classroom or a cohort of students that's really a champion, or a teacher's the champion. And how do we start making these things part of the system and the fabric of the school, as opposed to just a one-off project? So we kind of guide schools and students through this whole framework to try and move some of these sustainability projects along. And this is just in 3 steps, which we sometimes will use for younger students. So we want them to understand the problem, take action, and reflect. So how do we do this with a lot of different topics? One of our big ones that we do is waste audits. So these are just 4 different types, but we'll go into a school with scales, bins, clipboards, paperwork, all that kind of stuff. And we'll actually help students weigh out different types of trash that they might have in their school, so they can measure their different waste streams depending on what area they're looking at. Especially for high school students, really want to get into like the reducing side of waste management too. Sometimes the assessment surveys where they look at where are we actually purchasing our supplies from? Is that sustainable? Do we need as much paper? Could we make things, print less things? Really gets into that as well. So lots of different ways to do that here. This is kind of what our setup looks like if we're doing a traditional whole school audit. We get tarps, bags, the scales back here, all these different separation things, and we go through and we separate it all out, and they actually get data so that at the end of the school year, we can come back and do that for them again, and they can see where they've improved. These have been really nice. We did one a couple years ago in a cafeteria where they really wanted to start a recycling program, and they realized that most of the stuff in their cafeteria was single use and not recyclable. So they had this idea of what they were going to do. And then once they collected data, they saw that they needed to take different action and move maybe towards reusables instead of focusing on recycling because of what was in their waste stream. So it's always good for people to check that first and see that before they start taking action. So that's sort of the waste side of things. We also do stormwater audits, which, as some people alluded to before, as our climate changes, there's a lot more water and flooding issues that happen in our cities. So these help schools, students go through and look at some of the things that are outside their school and how stormwater flows over the land. And this gets a little bit longer. This is like a screenshot of it, but you can look and sort of give yourself points for where your school is at, and then decide what action you want to take on the surrounding of your school to see how you can better manage water on the outside of the school. Lots of students will use mapping in this part of it so that it's really good for younger students who are just good with pictures, older students who are really good with words. The full audit is really nice. So that's how we look at stormwater. And then the energy audit, which is the big one that people think of with climate, but these are super fun. Where we can either rent them out or help teachers pick out supplies where they can do their own energy audit. So they get like a 3 or 4 page sheet. They get a light meter, a kilowatt, a smoke pen, humidity and temperature pens, and they can go through and actually see in their classrooms, are they using energy as efficiently as they could be, or throughout their schools? Are there places where there's leaks? Are there places where there's too much light and we can maybe cut back, or not enough light and we need more? Are there places where it gets really cold in the room or too hot? And how can we sort of make those changes based on the data that we're actually able to collect? So we actually help schools go through this process of collecting data so students learn how to do that, but also how to analyze that data and make change, which is really important because it leads into HOPES programs, which are all about how students actually go about carrying out these sustainability projects within their school and across their school district. So Hope, I'm going to hand it off to you from here.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Maggie. It's so great to hear about all of the work that's being done across the state. And I'm really happy to work regularly with Maggie as well. And she actually serves as a mentor in the program that I'm going to be talking about now. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. All right. Great. Everyone can see that? Yeah. All right, perfect. So I'm going to be talking specifically about a program called the Green Schools Quest, which is a project-based challenge. This is an annual challenge for K through 12 schools to implement a no or low-cost sustainability project over the course of 6 months with the help of a community volunteer who serves as a green mentor. We're currently seeking both mentors and schools to participate during the upcoming year. So I hope everyone here on the call keeps that in mind. We'd love to have your participation. So the challenge is open to all schools within our chapter's territory, the U.S. Green Building Council Missouri Gateway chapter. And that is pictured in blue here. It does cover the majority of the state of Missouri, but excludes the Kansas City area. We also cover the Southern Illinois area. And since the launch of the program in 2013, nearly 200 schools have participated, many for multiple years. As you can see on this map, the majority of participants thus far have been located in that St. Louis metro area. And one of our current areas of focus is to really enhance participation throughout the state, especially in smaller towns and rural areas. So each school begins by really establishing one adult sponsor, which is typically a teacher, but it can be an administrator or even a parent. And they serve as the primary contact for the mentor and organizer of the participating students, which can be a student club, classroom, grade level, or the entire school, just any kind of grouping of students. USGBC Missouri Gateway then provides a volunteer to serve as a green mentor for each team. The mentor opportunity is open to any and all, especially MIA members from across the state. And the mentors had previously been, working directly in the schools. This past year, it was more virtual support. This upcoming year, it'll probably be a mixture, really depending upon school policies and things like that. But virtual support, as we all know, as we've engaged in this world more, it does open opportunities for individuals to engage and not be bound by a location. So projects are intended to be student-driven, and the mentor is there to assist with project ideas, implementation, and resources. And a couple of the previous speakers, some of the things that stood out to me, I know Matt mentioned, the kids should be in the driver's seat, and then the adults are there, to serve as the guardrails. And Tom mentioned, learning by doing is just so important. And we see the student engagement is amazing, and the student voice is just so powerful and really advancing efforts within the schools. So the mentors are just there to support. Teams then engage in a no or low cost sustainability project of their choosing based upon their unique needs and interests. And a lot of the discussions today have really gravitated towards some of the general areas we can clump things into: energy, food, waste, water, things like that. So we see a wide variety of projects across all of those areas, as well as other just creative, like, for instance, a sustainability scavenger hunt within the neighborhood, where students really engaged their community and thinking about how is our community already sustainable, supporting local businesses and things like that. So it can be really a wide range of projects. So during the course of the project, teams document their work and submit their outcomes for a chance to win. Winners are presented with a trophy and/or cash award, and all participating schools receive a Green Schools Quest participant decal to proudly display. They get another extra little, you can kind of see a little green circle up to the right of this decal with the year on it. And so as they participate multiple years, they can keep adding, each year as they go along. And it's really fun to visit schools around town and see those proudly displayed at the entrance. Because while winners are recognized in elementary, middle, and high, we also want to just recognize all participants for the amazing work that's been going on. So for the next school year, there are going to be 2 different program formats. Schools can choose whichever they'd prefer to engage in, whichever works best for them. The traditional format that we've been using since 2013 includes one comprehensive 6-month-long sustainability project. Teams turn in a 5-minute digital presentation and written report documenting their process and impact. at the conclusion, and these are reviewed by a panel of judges who then determine the winners in the elementary, middle, and high school categories. The second option was introduced last year in response to the pandemic, and it just went over so well that we wanted to keep that option open this upcoming year. And this takes a themed monthly sustainability challenge approach. At the end of each month, participants submit just a short description and photo of their work, and winners are drawn by random for cash prizes from all the submissions received. For the schools that choose the adapted format, each monthly theme represents one of the principles outlined in a tool called the Rainbow of Sustainability. The theme for each month is outlined here and posted on our website at greenschoolsquest.org. Wide variety of resources are available to support teams along the way. Here's a snapshot of the schedule, the timeline. Registration is now open for the upcoming year. It closes August 31st for mentors and September 15th for schools. Teams then engage in their projects October through March, and winners are announced in April. So more information about the program is right here at this website. Also links to register. And we have a handful of really amazing videos. Because each of the schools is submitting that video at the end, it's amazing to hear directly from the students. I typically like to share those out, but I know our time is short today. So I'm going to just drop in the chat this document, and this document just has resources for each of you that pertain to the presentation today. So, the website with registration, recruitment flyers, if you're interested in mentoring or participating in the school, or if you're in a position that you can get the word out to other potential mentors in schools, please distribute that information. We've got a couple of upcoming events for prospective schools and mentors. And these project example videos, they're so, I guarantee that it will uplift your day. So I'm going to put 2 links in addition to this document to 2 of my favorite videos. And I encourage you to just take a look as soon as this ends today. Just take an extra 5 minutes. You won't be disappointed. And the very last thing is I just want to mention that this is just one piece in a lot of initiatives that are going on, as we've already discussed. But we also partner with MIA on the Missouri Green Schools program, which is really looking more holistically at taking a systems-based approach to green the school. It does involve students, but the student-driven aspect is really at the core of the Green Schools Quest. So that's really what I wanted to share with you today for this presentation topic. But just before leaving, I want to mention it's a part of a bigger whole, and I'm happy to answer any questions about any of these. And I'm sure all our contact information will be shared out. So thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Hope. And I'm super excited you mentioned the student driven, because I think Todd is going to talk about some really exciting things that students are driving in the Kansas City area. So we're going to hop back over to KC. Todd, are you still with us? I don't see you.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for all of you who are sticking around on the middle of July on a beautiful afternoon, that you're taking the time to learn a little bit about what's going on. I feel a little bit like Matt Damon on the Jimmy Kimmel Show, that I almost got the hook because the timing is running out. So I'm going to be as efficient as I can with my presentation. But what it involves, hopefully I get this right, is that we have, in my school with 2 other schools in the Metro Kansas City area, a social justice project partnership. And we work on issues of social justice in the Kansas City community. We've been doing that for 7 years. And so what I'm going to share first with you all is a little video that our students put, that's an advocacy video that they did for elected officials. And hopefully I get this to work. Yes, here we go.
The climate is changing, and we're seeing the impact of it in our own world now more than ever. We are Future Bugs KC, and we are here to talk about global warming, how it impacts the KC metro area, and what you can do to help address climate change using Metro KC Climate Action Coalition's climate plan. We are a partnership of young leaders from 3 KC Metro high schools, Hyman Brand Hebrew Academy, University Academy, and Academy Lafayette. This is our 7th year striving to make positive improvements to our city. Now, we are focusing on climate change and what our community needs to do to help protect our planet. And it starts with you.
Climate change leaves our population vulnerable in a number of ways. It affects everybody, but not everybody equally. Of the 2.1 million residents in the KC metro area, elderly, poor, and communities of color are particularly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. One big impact that is happening are extreme increases in precipitation and temperature. The amount of annual rainfall and the average annual temperatures are increasing. Additionally, the amount of dry days without rain has risen. Projections show the number of extremely hot days over 105 degrees surging from less than 1 per year to 20 per year in the next several decades. These shifting weather patterns can lead to a number of phenomena, including drought, more violent thunderstorms, floods, and severe winter weather.
The consequences of these can lead to disease, hospitalizations, property and infrastructure damage, and even death. Climate change impacts all of us, especially those that society too frequently overlooks, and it is our job to do what we can to counteract its effects.
We're in danger. If the rate of emissions continues to increase the way it is today, our world will face the consequences. In order to sustainably live, we need to decrease emissions by 80% by the year 2050. Our main concern is greenhouse gas.
Greenhouse gases are gases that contribute to the greenhouse effect by absorbing infrared radiation. These gases have many detrimental effects on our environment, like wildfires, extreme weather, and the changing climate.
The 3 main contributors to greenhouse gas emissions are residential buildings, commercial and industrial buildings, and on-road transportation, being the greatest contributor. Focusing on these 3 factors will help us reach our goal to lower emissions and achieve a 80% decrease by 2050 before.
So I only showed part of the video because I knew there wasn't enough time to show it all. It's about a 5-minute video, and the students actually get into advocating for specific elements of the climate action plan. And the intended audience here is elected officials. Our students are trying to look at upstream solutions that are going to make big differences to the entire community and a regional partnership of the Climate Action KC. So just quickly, this is 3 schools that have worked together. These are students who are part of the schools, 12 to 20 students from each school, and they're learning and taking action. I'm going to skip through a little bit. We're called Future Votes KC, that's Future Leaders. The key thing really, this is a little bit of how we go about it, but I'll skip through that. Here's some different projects that we have worked on over the years that we have done this. And just as a quick thing, students really care about issues of fairness and equity in our communities. And so we, in our partnership, are really trying to tap into that to students to say, you can make bigger differences than just your own school. And so in 2017 and 18, we helped pass what was called the Healthy Homes Ballot Initiative in Kansas City, Missouri. Our students collected more than 1/3 of all the signatures to get that on the ballot. It passed, and that affects 250,000 people in Kansas City. And so one of the things that we look at is what are big solutions, and certainly the climate action plan and getting elected officials on board is a big solution. So I'm going to skip ahead to what did we do specifically with environmental action. So students, as you saw in the video, learned about emissions. They learned about impacts of climate change. And then we didn't get this in the video, but they looked about specific mitigation strategies. And so the students researched and picked the top 5 that they thought would be the biggest bang for our buck and our time and our energy. And they advocated those to elected officials. And so they used organizations in the Kansas City area to help learn about both different mitigation strategies and why they were effective, but also how to advocate to the right people who are making the big decisions. And so students in the spring this year met with local officials and said, we want you to do these things because we know that they will make a difference both for your city, but also for the larger metro area, and then set example for businesses and residents throughout the community. And so that was the big success story, is that they actually talked to those elected officials and said, please make these changes. We care about this. We are future voters in Kansas City, and we care about beyond ourselves. We also looked at it from an equity lens and saying, who's going to get affected the most and how do we do that? And so that was what was really exciting, is these students built relationships across schools from different backgrounds. They learned to do advocacy work. They met with officials and they asked for change. So that's my short version, but I want to give people an opportunity to ask questions to all of the panelists.
Todd, that was so great. And I really encourage everybody to watch that video in full, because it's great for elected officials. It's also great for, factoids for your next dinner party. There's a lot of good information on what will make the biggest impact. Before we do our Q&A, I just want to say a quick thank you to our presenters and everyone that's here today in the audience. I'm happy to stay on as long as folks want to do Q&A. Any presenters, if you have to get off, I understand, same with attendees. But I just wanted to thank again, Ripple Glass, Branch Pattern, and Cromwell Solar for supporting tonight's event. These are the kind of companies that we need more of, and we are so pleased to be able to share their names with you tonight. And so make sure you check them out. Their websites are right here on the screen. So